Once upon a time, there lived an unhappy young girl. Unhappy she was, for her mother was dead and her father had married another woman, a widow with 2 daughters. Now her stepmother didn't like her one little bit. All the nice things, kind thoughts and loving touches were for her own daughters and not for the little girl. And not just the kind thoughts and love, but also dresses, shoes, shawls, delicious food, comfy beds, hot, fragranced baths, wonderful jewellery, as well as every home comfort. All this was laid on for her daughters, but for the poor unhappy girl, there was nothing at all. No dresses, only her stepsister's torn or broken hand-me-downs. No nice rests and comfort, not even a nice hot bath. She had to bathe in the cold stream by the house or out of a tiny bucket in the yard. She was forced to work hard all day, and only when evening came was she allowed to sit for a while by the fire near the cinders. That is how she got her nickname, for everybody called her Cinderella. Cinderella used to spend long hours all alone talking to the cat. The cat said, "Meow," which really meant, "Cheer up, you have something neither of your stepsisters has, and that is beauty, outside and in." It was quite true. Cinderella, even dressed in rags with a dusty grey face from the cinders, was a lovely girl, and genuinely kind-hearted too, while her stepsisters, no matter how splendid and elegant their clothes, were still clumsy, lumpy and ugly, and mean-spirited and always would be. One day, exquisitely beautiful new dresses arrived at the house. A ball was to be held at court, and the stepsisters were getting ready to go to it. Cinderella didn't even dare ask, "What about me?" for she knew very well what the answer to that would be. "Now, you dirty, unwashed girl," said the stepmother. "You're staying at home to wash the floors, scrub the dishes, and turn down the beds for your stepsisters. They will come home tired and very sleepy." And with a swoosh and a bustle, they were gone, out the door, headed for the wondrous ball and the chance to glimpse at the handsome noble prince that all the girls in town secretly had a crush on. Cinderella, now all alone, sighed at the cat. "Oh dear, I'm so unhappy." And the cat said, "Meow." Suddenly something amazing happened. There was a burst of light, and a splendid fairy in the lightest of fabric dresses appeared. "Don't be alarmed, Cinderella," said the kind fairy. "The wind blew me your sighs. I know you would love to go to the ball, and so you shall." "How can I dressed in rags?" said Cinderella. "The servants will turn me away." The fairy smiled. With a flick of her magic wand, wonder of wonders, Cinderella found herself wearing the most beautiful dress, the loveliest ever seen in the realm, with 7 petticoats underneath, each more delicate and lacy than the last. And instead of the clumsy clogs she was wearing, there were 2 glass slippers with such exquisite design in the glass she knew them to be fairy slippers. "Now that we have settled the matter of the dress," said the kind fairy, "we'll need to get you a coach. A real lady would never go to a ball on foot. Quick, get me a pumpkin." "Oh, of course," said Cinderella, rushing away. Then the fairy turned to the cat. "You, bring me 7 mice." "7 mice?" said the cat. "I didn't know fairies ate mice too." "They're not for eating, silly. Do as you are told, and remember, they must be alive." Cinderella soon returned with a fat, fine, glossy pumpkin, and the cat with 7 frightened mice he had caught in the cellar. "Good!" exclaimed the fairy. With a flick of her magic wand, the pumpkin grew into a white, sparkling coach with velvet and silk cushions, with lace curtains, and the most intricate design workings in the frame you could ever hope to see in this lifetime or the next. The mice became 6 proud, shining white horses, and the 7th mouse turned into a handsome coachman in a smart white uniform and carrying a whip. Cinderella could hardly believe her bright blue eyes. "Ah! I shall present you at court," said the fairy. "You will soon see that the prince in whose honour the ball is being held will be enchanted by your loveliness. But remember, you must leave the ball at midnight and come home, for that is when the spell ends. Your coach will turn back into a pumpkin, the horses will become mice again, and your coachman will turn back into a mouse. And you will be dressed again in rags and wearing clogs instead of these dainty little slippers. Do you understand?" Cinderella smiled and said, "Yes, I understand." When Cinderella entered the ballroom at the palace, a hush fell. Everybody stopped in mid-sentence to admire her elegance, her beauty and grace. "Who can that be?" they all said to one another. The 2 stepsisters also wondered who the newcomer was, for never in a month of Sundays would they ever have guessed that the beautiful girl was really poor Cinderella who talked to the cat. When the prince set eyes on her, he was struck by her beauty. Walking over to her, he bowed deeply and asked her to dance. And to the great disappointment of all the young ladies present, he danced with Cinderella all evening. "Who are you, fair maiden?" the prince kept asking her. But Cinderella only replied, "What does it matter who I am? You will never see me again anyway." "Oh, but I shall, I am quite certain," the prince said. Cinderella had a wonderful time at the ball, but all of a sudden she heard the sound of a clock. The first stroke of midnight! She remembered what the fairy had said, and without a word of goodbye, she slipped from the prince's arms and ran down the steps. As she ran, she lost one of her glass slippers, but not for a moment did she dream of stopping to pick it up. If the last stroke of midnight were to sound, oh, what a disaster that would be! Out she fled and vanished into the night. The prince, who was now madly in love with her, picked up her slipper and said to the ministers, "Go and search everywhere for the girl whose foot this slipper fits. I will never be content until I find her." So the ministers travelled near and far, trying the foot on the slipper of all the girls, even the 2 horrid stepsisters, but it fit none of them. Just as they were turning to leave, they noticed shy Cinderella working quietly in the corner, straining to hear the conversation. They asked the stepmother if they could try the slipper on Cinderella's foot. "On her foot?" said the stepmother. "You can't be serious. Why, she is just an ugly maid. She would never attend a ball like that and has never even worn a dress, let alone a slipper." Nevertheless, the ministers insisted, and shy Cinderella sat and offered her foot for the dainty slipper. The slipper fitted perfectly. "No!" screeched the stepmother. "Tell the prince he ought to marry one of my own 2 daughters. Can't you see how ugly Cinderella is? Can't you see? That's enough." The fairy had appeared. With a flick of her magic wand, Cinderella appeared in the most beautiful dress, shining with youth and elegance. "Come with us, fair maiden," the ministers said. So Cinderella joyfully went with them as her stepmother and stepsisters gaped at her in amazement. The wedding was unlike any other ever seen in the realm. Dignitaries travelled from near and far to gaze upon the beauty of their new princess, who would one day be their queen. Cinderella lived happily ever after with her handsome, charming prince. And as for the cat, well, he just said, "Meow." The end. Thank you. Thank you.